So, guys, Manchester United return to Premier League action on Boxing Day on Thursday, the 26th of December in 2024. It's match day 18 of the 24-25 Premier League season, where we are facing a relegation threatened Wolves. Could this be the final nail in Wolves' coffin for Wolves to be a Premier League club in the future? Will Manchester United get back to winning ways after the humbling last two defeats against Tottenham and ASC Bournemouth yesterday evening? And will Ruben Amorim be able to turn the current mess around that Manchester United are in? Obviously, Wolves have got a new manager. They've got their new manager in. Obviously, they won 3-0 against Leicester City away from home at the King Power yesterday evening as well. So Wolves are very much on the up. But I do expect the quality of the players we have and the quality that Manchester United can produce will be too much for Wolves to overcome. But I think the big talking point here is that I expect Manchester United to fully confirm Wolves relegation after the full-time whistle at Molyneux on Thursday evening. If you look at a club like Wolves and you look at what they did under Nuno Espirito Santo, if you look at what he did, if you look at the rebuild he brought back to Wolves, if you look at the type of quality of players that he brought in, and you look at what an amazing job he did for them in the Championship and how well he did with them once they were back as a Premier League club, where that season in the Championship, Wolves were just absolutely fantastic. They were a formidable team. No one could beat them, and they were playing everyone off the park. And I think when you take a quality manager like Nuno Espirito Santo out of Wolves and you bring in a manager like Gary O'Neill, who did an okay job at Bournemouth, I mean, it's not exactly going to spark wonders of excellency or quality of the manager that Wolves really needed to go for. And I think when Wolves brought him in, it was a massive, massive gamble. And to be fair, you've got to give him credit for their campaign last season where they avoided relegation. They finished about mid-table, and Gary O'Neill kept Wolves in the Premier League with a lack of quality in their squad, a lack of consistency. And Wolves were doing all right last season. They were doing absolutely fine. But I think this season is a big realisation for the Wolves fans and the Wolves supporters, because a club like Wolves, in my view, shouldn't be battling relegation. A club like Wolves should not be in that Premier League bottom three. And a club that did so well when Nuno Espirito Santo brought them back to the Premier League, you would have thought the stability and the consistency, Wolves were going to bring that back. They were going to be a very well-run football club. They were going to be a very stable club again in the Premier League. And I fully expected Wolves to carry on where they left off from once they were back in the Premier League, where that season in the Championship they were fantastic. The quality of goals, the quality of their performances, and what Nuno Espirito Santo brought to them was just pure quality. And I feel sorry for the Wolves fans. I feel sorry for the Wolves supporters, because the situation you're in is a really shit one. You are struggling to compete with the teams like Ipswich, Southampton and Leicester. You really should not be in that Premier League bottom three with the type of players that you've got. I think Wolves have gone wrong when they brought Gary O'Neill in the first place. In my view, you're replacing Nuno Espirito Santo with Gary O'Neill. Does that spark volumes of quality? Does that speak volumes of consistency? And is that really a manager that Wolves fans and Wolves supporters were really expecting? Wolves' ambition to bring in a manager like that, where at Bournemouth, both clubs are on a different level. Both clubs are on a level of trying to avoid relegation. One club's a lot more on the up this season compared to the other. I think where Wolves have gone wrong, when Gary O'Neill got that job, it was a massive, massive gamble from the Wolves board. In my view, I don't think their owners, I don't think your board really give a fuck. I think where you've gone wrong, you've let 14 quality players walk out your door and you've not really replaced them. You've had all that money from their sales and their selling on fees, and you've not replaced those 14 players that brought you a lot of quality into your team in the last few seasons. And once that quality is gone, and once those type of players are no longer at your football club, I always find Wolves were going to struggle, because the money they got from all those player sales, Wolves did not use to improve their team. Wolves had no ambition to rebuild their club once all their quality of players that they actually did have went out the door. And I think that is where Wolves have gone massively wrong this season. When you don't replace the quality you've had and you basically go with what you've got, the outcome of this is you're always going to struggle. You're always going to be fighting. And the relegation battle you are in, you shouldn't be struggling to compete with Ipswich. You shouldn't be struggling to compete with Leicester. And you really shouldn't be struggling to compete with Southampton. To be honest, the three promoted clubs have all been a joke since they've been back in the Premier League. It's a telltale sign of these clubs in the Championship to the Premier League is a different level of quality. The budget, the money isn't there for these Championship clubs to be able to compete against Premier League teams that have been in there for the last few seasons. And the Premier League, you get found out very, very quickly. And when you're struggling at home and not picking up points, that is meant to be your home turf. That is meant to be your superior strength. And when you're going to away teams against especially the top six, as well as mid-table teams like the Brentfords, the Bournemouths, the Brightons, the Forests, and even the Fulhams, if you don't pick points up away from home against them, Wolves are always going to struggle to find a way out of that bottom three. And I think if Wolves suffer a heavy defeat on Thursday, because I think at this moment in time, Manchester United need the points more. We need the victories more now, especially after our last two defeats, conceding 7 goals in our last 2. Out of the Carabao Cup, still 13th in the Premier League. Manchester United are in a lot of trouble. But I think Wolves obviously had to make a decision about Gary O'Neill. I think that was the wrong appointment to go down for. I always said Gary O'Neill was really, really going to struggle at Wolves. And unfortunately, I don't think the Wolves board and the owners had any ambition to get that club out of this relegation fight. I felt Wolves have left it way too late from a rival fan point of view to replace Gary O'Neill. I think the first few of your results where it started going wrong, the Wolves board and your owners didn't really react quick enough to get Gary O'Neill out your football club. And I think the problem is, I think it's already too little too late for Wolves to escape. I'm not saying you're not going to escape the relegation battle, but I think the damage is already done from what Gary O'Neill has walked into and basically ripped apart the system and the stability that Wolves actually had. I think if Wolves would have kept Nuno Espirito Santo and managed to have him as their manager still, and if you didn't have lost all these players that Nuno actually brought into the football club, I think Wolves would have been absolutely fine this season. I think Wolves would have finished about mid-table. And obviously, I think a lot of Wolves fans would have taken that, especially with the likes of the top 6. You're not really going to get amongst that battle. The top 10, I mean, top 10 is always doable in 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. You've always got a chance of finishing in one of those 4 spots respectively. But in my view, where Gary O'Neill went wrong, you look at the 14 players that have left Wolves in the last 2 transfer windows. Pedro Neto, Kilman, Podence, Fabio Silva, Bueno, Johnny, Diego Costa, Raul Jimenez, Matthias Nunes, Ruben Neves, Connor Cody, Adama Traore, Martinho, and Nathan Collins. Those 14 players alone were never replaced by the board at Wolves. Those 14 players that Wolves got very good money for, Wolves never replaced. And the problem is, it's all right bringing this money in, which obviously Wolves did need. But when you don't replace any of those 14 players that Wolves let walk out the door for good money, this is the outcome of the club's failure to back Gary O'Neill. Because if Gary O'Neill was still in charge now and Wolves would have replaced all those players that walked and left the football club, Wolves would have been fine if they would have given Gary O'Neill money to be able to get Wolves into a bigger and better position in the Premier League this season. The problem is, because money has been held back by Wolves and the owners don't really have any ambition to improve that current first team. You look at the quality that Wolves don't have, and you look at the quality they do need. Those 14 players alone, Wolves should have never let go of. The problem is when you've got the lure of more stable Premier League clubs now, you've got bigger clubs coming in for some of these players. And I think the ambition that some of these clubs are going in the right direction, at the likes of Bournemouth and Brentford and Brighton and Forest and Fulham, those players will be appealed to the interest and with the ambitions that those football clubs try and hit. And the problem is at Wolves, I think there's a lack of ambition. I think there's a lack of ownership. And I think there's a lack of urgency for Wolves to stay up in the Premier League. I think their owners have really fucked you over. I don't think your board really give a fuck. I think they're letting your football club rot. I don't think Wolves are going to stay up. I think the damage is already done. I think the points you're not going to get, you're going to struggle to get that bottom three. And with your next few fixtures, you'll wonder where Wolves are going to get any points from. I think Wolves are going to find this very, very tough to get out of this fight. I think relegation might be a hindrance to them getting back in the Premier League next season, because if you look at their squad now, they're going to obviously have to sell a lot of those players, not just in January, but again next summer, if you do go down, which is a huge, huge possibility. I think Manchester United will confirm your relegation, even though there's clearly going to be a new manager bounce because Gary O'Neill is now fucked off. The problem is why your board and the owners didn't sack Gary O'Neill quicker is really, really surprising. I don't know why, when it started going wrong in your first few fixtures and the points and the results weren't being picked up, Gary O'Neill should have been sacked on the spot. The problem at Wolves is there's a lot of excuses now that a lot of these football clubs will use to not sacking the manager. How much is it going to cost us? How much is it going to cost us to find a replacement? And what are we going to do about January? The problem is at Wolves, they're in the same boat as Manchester United with the excuse book. Wolves apparently are in all this financial mess. Wolves are in a financial crisis. Wolves basically are cash strapped. For me, in my view, as a rival fan, don't believe the bullshit, don't believe the lies, and don't believe the PR that comes out the mouths of that Wolves owners. They clearly have all this money that they earned through the sale of Pedro Neto. You got 60 million for him. You got good money for Max Kilman from West Ham. You got about 40 million. Daniel Podence went to Olympiacos. You got good money there. Fabio Silva didn't exactly work out as a Wolves player that was going to offer any consistency in front of goal. Players like Bueno and Johnny were let go by Wolves for free. They were never replaced. Diogo Costa, who Wolves expected to hit the heavy heights like he did at Chelsea, expecting him to be the answer to their goal-scoring problems. Diogo Costa, if he would have been managed properly and he would have been fitted into the right system where he had two quality wingers giving him the service that Diogo Costa had at Chelsea, if Wolves would have had that, they would have been a lot more consistent in front of goal, and Diogo Costa would have been putting the ball in the back of the Wolves net a lot more than what he did in his Wolves career, because it was a very, very short Wolves career. It wasn't a very, very long campaign for him as a Wolves player. But honestly, the quality that you brought in there, you would have thought Wolves are starting to go in the right direction by bringing in these experienced Premier League players that have hit the heavy heights at a club like Chelsea that won the Premier League under Jose Mourinho and then Antonio Conte. You would have thought that experience and the quality that Diego Costa had would have helped Wolves get a lot more further up the pitch and would have offered Wolves a lot more of an attacking threat. Raul Jimenez, for me, was another big problem that Wolves never replaced. He was your main goal scoring threat. He was always in your starting 11. He was always one of the first names on your team sheet. You let him go for free. You let Raul Jimenez walk out of Wolves for free. And I think the decision there by Wolves was a stupid one. It was an idiotic one. And the thinking behind that was unnecessary. Wolves had a great striker in Raul Jimenez. He went to Fulham for free. Wolves never replaced him. Why they let Raul Jimenez's contract run down as quick as they did at Wolves, I will never understand that. And obviously, he suffered a bad head injury when he was at Wolves. And I get that when players have bad injuries, they might not be the same player they once were. But letting Raul Jimenez go to one of your Premier League rivals, which is clearly going to strengthen their attack and their front three options, was a massive, massive no-no from a Wolves perspective. Because if you've not got any realistic, ideal replacement for Raul Jimenez, you really should have tried to tie him down to a new contract instead of just letting him walk out the door for free. And that was the problem. And this is why Wolves aren't scoring goals, because they don't really now have that consistent striker in front of goal. They don't have that one player that can always put the ball into the back of the net every single game that Wolves are in the cup or in the league. Wolves don't have that consistency because their star man is now starring at Fulham. And yes, he has been in and out the team, but still, he's done great things for Fulham since he arrived at Craven Cottage. Why Wolves let him go to a Premier League rival was clearly a naive one, because if Wolves would have been able to have kept hold of Raul Jimenez, Wolves might have been okay. Wolves might have been all right. If Raul Jimenez was still there now, he probably would have been scoring Wolves a lot of goals and putting the ball in the back of the net on a consistent basis. But because Wolves let him walk out for free, it absolutely destroyed Wolves' attacking options. Wolves' attacking options have gone out the window now because Wolves don't have the answers to their problems. And the problem is, there's clearly money there to spend. They're doing what Man United are doing. They will come up with financial fair play. They will come up with sell to buy, and they'll come up with PSR. All three seem to be a big issue for a lot of these Premier League clubs. And I'm going to keep stating it now. The evidence isn't there to prove that Wolves are struggling financially. The evidence isn't there. If there was evidence would have been proved by now in front of the fans' face on paper. There is no evidence to show that Wolves are in bad financial crisis. There's no evidence that Wolves don't have money. There is no evidence that Wolves can't spend. There's no evidence that Wolves can't do anything in January or next summer. There's clearly money there because you've had the Pedro Neto sale, the Kilman, the Podence, Matthias Nunes, Ruben Neves, Connor Cody, Martinho, Nathan Collins. There's no excuse Wolves can hide behind. There's no excuse. And when you come up this excuses, they will use them over and over again to brainwash and manipulate the fans. And I think this is the problem that Wolves fans are having to deal with. It's the same at Manchester United. There seems to be a big underlying issue that just because these are big football clubs doesn't mean they don't have money. These clubs do have money. They just don't want to spend it where they don't think it's necessary to do it. And Wolves have done that not just through their summer. They did it in January of last year. And they're also doing it in the summer of this year. They didn't really spend heavily to exactly improve their team. And they didn't. And I don't think they'll do it in January in 2025. Because the Wolves owners and the board have kept so much money back through all the players that they've let go. You would have thought realistically, we've lost Neto, we've lost Kilman, we've lost Neves, we've lost Nunes, Connor Cody, Martinho, Nathan Collins. There was at least 200 million there Wolves got through pure profit because they sold those players on at another level of money. There was an increase of the players' values because the players they've let go. There was money there to spend at Wolves. And Gary O'Neill went into that football club and ripped everything up which was good about Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club. Because Nuno came into Wolves and Wolves was an absolute mess. When they got relegated from the Prem that season, when they didn't have Nuno, before Nuno even came in, Wolves were an absolute mess. I remember when Wolves were in League One at one point. Remember when Wolves were in League One and they had back-to-back relegations. Wolves have never gone down to as far as a League One club. And Wolves were always going to be one of the favourites to get out of League One very, very quickly. And obviously, they got up to the Championship after they got back from League One, back to the second tier of English football, which was the Sky Bet Championship. And obviously, Wolves were then getting found out a lot, because if you're in League One and you've got a club like Wolves, you're always going to be the favourites to win that division by an absolute mile, in which they did. They won League One by a bloody mile. There was no point, really, Wolves even competing in that division, because Wolves were too good. I watched them a lot in League One when they were in that division. They were too good for everybody. They were just too good. Away from home as well as at home, they were winning every game. They were scoring a shitload of goals. It's because the level at Wolves was too big for any other League One club to compete. No one stood a chance. And when Wolves got back to the Championship, they then really, really struggled to adapt. And obviously, Wolves again were then fighting relegation, go straight back down to League One. And obviously, Wolves made a change, which was the correct one, and brought Nuno in. And then look at the players he did bring in. He brought in players like Nunes and Neves and Jimenez and Bueno and Johnny, Connor Cody, Adama Traore, Moutinho. You look at the quality of players that Nuno Espirito Santo was getting out in at Wolves. He got rid of a lot of the crap and brought a lot of quality players in, and some of the players I just mentioned a few minutes ago. You look at the quality he brought in. You look at the football they were playing. You look at their performances in the Championship when they won that league title that season. You look at the quality of goals that their team and their players were producing, match in, match out. Wolves were ripping everybody apart. No one again stood a chance, because the quality of players that Nuno brought in was too good again for any other Championship club to go up against. No other club in that Championship that season stood a bloody chance, because Wolves were just too good, because Wolves are bringing in quality players through the connections that Nuno had with every other league in European and worldwide football. You look at the quality they don't have now. This is why Wolves are struggling. This is why you're fighting relegation, because you sack Nuno, which in my view, it was a massive, massive mistake. I was still shocked when they got rid of him. No disrespect. Nuno was the best manager ever in Wolves history by an absolute mile. Nuno Espirito Santo was your best ever manager that football club has ever actually had. And you look at the mess you're in now. That has got to come down to your ownership, and it's got to come down to your management at board level. There's clearly a massive, massive problem with certain people at your football club who are keeping and holding Wolves back from pushing on to be a bigger and better football club. It's like they want to get relegated and rebuild again. It's the vibe I get. It's the situation I look at it in from a Wolves perspective. It's like this is being done deliberately for Wolves to struggle. A club like Wolves shouldn't be fighting relegation. It's an absolute disgrace, because they were so stable last season. They were absolutely fine. Nowhere near that bottom three. They were fine. They were winning a lot of games. They were producing good performances and good results. And season 2 syndrome hits under Gary O'Neill. Gary O'Neill did an okay job at Bournemouth, but okay is not exactly good enough. You need to be aiming for higher and bigger targets and bigger ambition. What Wolves were thinking by bringing Gary O'Neill in the first place, I don't understand that. Because obviously, you're always going to have a new manager bounce when a new manager comes in, because you've sacked the old manager. And everyone blamed that, Gary O'Neill was a big, big problem at Wolves. And again, it was probably the correct thing for Wolves to do, to say, because Gary O'Neill was never going to get Wolves aiming for a bigger target. And with some of the players they still have a lot of quality. They still have a few good players. But when you suck the heart and the soul and the life out of Wolves Football Club by selling 14 of your best players and hardly replacing any of them, it's no wonder the mess you are in. It's no wonder the situation Wolves fans and supporters are suffering, especially at this festive period of time. We're nearly at Christmas. We're 2 days away from Christmas, right? You would have thought the festive season would have been fine for all these Premier League clubs this season. You would have realistically thought all 3 clubs that came up for the Championship are going to go straight back down. There's only one club in the Premier League this season who came up from the Championship that is not in that bottom three, and it's Leicester City. Even though they lost their manager and lost theoretically their best player in Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, you would have thought Wolves would have been able to compete against clubs who have come up from the Championship, who don't really have the pull power, don't really have the budget and the finances available, even though, Southampton came up through the playoff final. It's one of the richest games in world football. You had Leicester and Ipswich both come up through automatic promotion. You would have thought those clubs would have done at least something to improve their level, that they could be a Premier League club and that they could be ready and that they realistically could stand a chance of avoiding relegation. The problem is Wolves have left this situation way too late and the damage is already done. I don't see how Wolves will get out of this. I think Wolves are in big, big trouble because where's your next few points coming from? I'm unsure. From a rival fan, I'm not sure where you're going to go for the rest of the season because Wolves have still got to play a lot of the top six. And when you look at that Premier League table, as it currently stands, you look at that top 10. Realistically, did anyone expect this season for Bournemouth, Forest, Fulham, Brighton, and Brentford to be in that top 10? Did anyone really expect those 5 clubs to be in that Premier League top 10? And hello to Emmanuel in our chat, who was one of our managing moderators. Did anyone really expect those 5 clubs to be competing for European spots? In my view, I don't think you would have. I think I would have eaten my own hat if someone would have told me at the start of this Premier League season, 5 of the clubs I've just mentioned there will be competing for European spots. I wouldn't have believed anybody. It would have been the usual old suspects. The problem is with Wolves, because they've already played a lot of those teams who are in that top 10, they were getting battered. They were getting ripped apart. They got destroyed by Bournemouth at home. But the only positive from Wolves was from yesterday. And clearly, Gary O'Neill was quite a big problem for you. He wasn't exactly going with Wolves in the right direction that Wolves fans and supporters actually wanted. And the problem is, now, the new manager bounce is going to be there. The new manager bounce is clearly going to be there on Thursday. And Emmanuel has said, if only United were actually decent, we would have taken advantage of City's downfall and Arsenal dropping points constantly. The problems with Manchester United, we're not good enough to compete with Man City. We're not good enough to compete with Arsenal. We are currently 13th in the Premier League table on our worst run since 1989. We're on our worst points tally ever in Premier League history. The problem is we're coming up against a team who are clearly going to have that new manager bounce, who clearly now are going to have the confidence and the belief that they will be able to get out of this relegation fight. I still think, in my view and in my opinion, Wolves are doomed. I still don't think Wolves will survive. And I think if a club like Wolves go down, it's going to be a disaster for the Premier League. I think if Wolves go down, it will be a financial mess for the Premier League if they go down, because Wolves bring a lot of money to the Premier League for every aspect of the Premier League level. Wolves bring a lot of entertainment, excitement and money into the Premier League for the Premier League to stay afloat. If Wolves go down, the Premier League could be in big, big trouble, because the Premier League need those consistent teams who are going to be the bigger and better teams for everyone to be able to get attraction and money from. And again, it is a massive money situation. The game has completely gone of the love and enjoyment that fans and supporters actually loved about football. Unfortunately, now is more about money than anything else. And that, unfortunately, is never, ever going to go. Football will always be about money now. That is the biggest problem in football. It is all about money. And the new manager bounce at Wolves, it could be Manchester United's biggest downfall on Thursday, because their performance against Leicester yesterday, I wasn't really surprised by it from a Wolves perspective. I wasn't really surprised that you beat Leicester. No disrespect, Ruud van Nistelrooy has done okay since he took over the reins at Leicester City. He's done all right. He's not done brilliant, but he's done okay. I would have rather seen Ruud van Nistelrooy gone to a bigger club than Leicester City, because look at the season they're having as well. They're amongst the favourites to go straight back down to the Championship from once they came. And if Leicester go down, they will pinpoint that Ruud van Nistelrooy was always the biggest problem. The problem was with Leicester, they should have sacked Steve Cooper when it started getting tough from the beginning, and Leicester left it way too late. And I think Leicester's defeat yesterday has given Wolves the confidence, knowing the vulnerability again at Manchester United, especially what's going on between Ruben Amorim and Marcus Rashford. Because again today, Ruben Amorim is not happy the way Marcus Rashford's team of people around him has handled the situation and the comments that Rashford made about wanting the next step, wanting the next chapter in his career. That clearly has fucked everything up for Ruben Amorim. And that situation he has got himself involved in, because Rashford wants out, Rashford wants to go, but Rashford feels he's been massively untreated unfairly. He feels disrespected. He feels it's stupid that Manchester United are now looking for options and suitors for Marcus Rashford's rest of his career. He feels there's been a lack of respect shown to him. I think if Rashford wouldn't have shown those comments and made that statement the other day, the mess wouldn't have been the mess we've got now. We've lost back-to-back games. We've conceded 7 goals in our last 2 games. We are 13th in the Premier League on 22 points. We've had 1 out of 3 options of European football gone out of the window because we're now out of the Carabao Cup. And we are basically still in the fight of avoiding relegation. I'm not saying I want to go down. I'm not saying I want to get relegated. But that might be the only way Manchester United will ever get back. If we get relegated and we go down, we rebuild from scratch. The Glazers and Ineos might do what they might go. That might be the only option, because I don't understand what Ineos have actually done since they've been at this football club. I don't understand what they've actually improved. I don't understand what they've actually brought in terms of experience and knowledge. I don't understand where Ineos are trying to get us to be a bigger and better football club. And I don't understand that they've brought all this money in, but apparently Manchester United are going to be cash strapped in January, because apparently we are in the same situation as Wolves, where it's sell to buy, it's financial fair play, and it's PSR, which us fans know is the biggest load of bullshit that has ever been made up in footballing life. There is no financial fair play problems, there's no sell to buy crisis, and there's no PSR issues that Manchester United are in. Don't believe what you're getting told. Don't believe what the media are trying to brief you with, and don't believe what's being said on social, because it's all right coming up with these excuses. Man United need a rebuild. Simple as that. And again, Emmanuel said 18 months of underperforming, and he wants more pampering after 9 years of underperforming. Exactly. Personally, I wanted a Qatar full sale regeneration of Old Trafford, debt gone. Yeah, exact. This is what I wanted. This is exactly what I wanted. I wanted a Qatar takeover. I wanted a brand new elite stadium, and I wanted all the debt gone. And the problem is, we should have sacked Ten Hag when we had the chance. When we won the FA Cup, they should have got rid of him regardless, and Man United gave him another chance. And again, United left it way too late. Ruben Amorim's come in. It was all right at the start, and now the last 2 games has been the reality of the job he's got on his shoulders. And again, player power is becoming a big problem, because if it was me, realistically, I would be playing the kids for the rest of the season. I am done with a lot of those first team players. But again, there's certain sections in our fan base and there's certain sections in our supporters that hold the hand of certain players and protect them till the ends of the earth. And it really infuriates me where there's a lot of crap in that Manchester United team that played yesterday, played against Tottenham, played against Arsenal, played against Forest, and a lot of those players aren't good enough. And you've got to question, I know Ruben Amorim is meant to be the new manager, but he's also got to start taking responsibility for picking these players. I don't want long-term pain again. I don't want to be facing these bumps. I don't want to be facing these cracks. We need to be a club that is consistently winning every game. We need to be winning every game we're in. and we're not doing it because the consistency isn't there. The players don't give a fuck. The season's already over. You might as well end the Premier League now because I can't see our league position improving. I can't see how Manchester United is going to get points from their next 2 games. And I'm struggling to see any kind of positive in any of those players' attitudes because yesterday was a big, big realisation that the rebuild we need has got to be a big one. A lot of players need to be shown the door. And if it was me, realistically, I would be putting every single one of them up for sale if I had my choice. And I think Ruben Amorim has got to realise you need to get rid of some of this crap before it infests itself. And one problem we're going to face, if one player starts becoming toxic, he's going to start getting the rest of his teammates around him and they'll become toxic with him and jump on the bandwagon to try and force Amorim out. Let's just focus on the Europa League if we can even win it. Exactly. The Europa League isn't going to be easy to win. But the focus has to be Thursday. We haven't got European football till January now, which I suppose in some aspects that's probably a positive because it is a bit of a break from playing away on a Thursday night away in Europe and then we're playing straight back to Sunday in Premier League action. So I suppose not our focus from European football has gone for now until it kicks off again in January, which may be a positive. But I'm struggling to understand that we've got a manager who sees what we see. We've got a manager that sees the problems that the supporters see. We've got a manager that I think actually understands what we're experiencing and what we're going through. But Ruben Amorim is picking Maguire. Ruben Amorim is picking Dalot. Ruben Amorim is picking Malacia. Ruben Amorim's picking Højlund. Ruben Amorim's picking Xerxes. Ruben Amorim's picking Onana. You would have realised, I thought he would have figured this out quite quickly. If these players aren't good enough, you don't pick them. You don't even have them on the bench. That is the manager I thought we were getting, where I am going to drop a load of this crap and I'm not going to use them. But I've seen from the last 2 games, a lot of these players are still getting a chance. A lot of these players are still getting an opportunity. And I don't understand why they are. I thought we were meant to be being brutal. I thought we were meant to be having a realisation that we need to clear half this out. And the more opportunities they get, they're going to get more likely of a chance of staying for another season or 2. And that's the biggest problem. It's like an infestation of mice. We've got too many players being infested into keeping their careers at Manchester United Football Club, where we need a manager who's going to tell them you're not going to be in the team. You're not going to be in the squad. You're not being on the bench. I'm not picking you. I don't want you here. That's the type of manager I thought we were getting in Ruben Amorim, where he's not going to pick these players, but he's still picking them. And look at the performances that they're producing. And to be honest, I can't blame Amorim. He has to work with what we have. These are Eric Ten Hag players. Ineos won't even sell them. I think Ineos have got to. I think Ineos have got a lot of players they need to get rid of, and they're going to have to sell them at a loss. And again, you can't use PSR. You can't use financial fair play. You can't use sell to buy. And to be honest, you can't even start saying, well, the club's in debt. We all know the club's in debt. At the end of the day, if we've got to spend money and a shitload of it to improve the squad, that's what we've got to do. And I will come back to the Chelsea situation. If you look at the Chelsea's investment and you look at the amount of money they have spent over the last 2 transfer windows, look where they are. Look where Chelsea are now. Look where Chelsea are. They're in a Premier League title race, for God's sake. Look at the players they've got. Look at the quality they've got. Look at the crap that Maresca's got rid of. Look at the crap he's not using. Look at the crap he's banished from the first team. Look at the way he is managing to put a completely different team in the Europa Conference League to the Premier League. That is why Chelsea are where they are, because they can freshen things up like that. They've got 2 teams they can select from in 2 different competitions and freshen both selections up. That is what we don't have. We don't spend that type of money that Chelsea do. I think that's what it's going to take. Realistically, I look at the squad we've got. Out of all those players, the only ones I would be keeping, who I would start Thursday, would be Yoro. I think De Ligt's got to come back in, no matter if he's ill or not. That is no excuse. If I was ill and feeling under the weather, I would still go and put on a Manchester United shirt and go out there and fucking perform for them, no matter if I'm not feeling 100%. But when you've got players wimping out and can't be bothered, this is the mentality. This is the attitude we get. This is what we get from these players. This is what we get. Emmanuel, I agree. The Qatari bid would have gotten rid of the Glazers. Now the club's been double glazed, but not in a nice way. They wouldn't have been doing things and drabs, opportunities missed. Exactly. And again, please do subscribe to the channel if you're new, because we are getting some fantastic comments in this live at the moment. The quality and the consistency that some of you are bringing to this channel, because you actually talk a lot of fucking sense, like myself, in my view. I hope I talk a lot of sense because I'm honest, I'm open, and I'm brutal, because I want the best for this football club. I want everyone to be successful again. I want Manchester United to be the best. That's what I want us to be. But we're not getting there because we are being held back by problematic issues at this football club, not just with ownership, but with players as well. And this is why the fan base is suffering. This is why the supporters are having to go through what we go through. Because yesterday, I never felt as low as what I did. Yesterday was a big realization. If this carries on and we keep hitting these buffers and we keep hitting the bumps and we just keep sacking the manager after manager after manager, my problem is I'm not going to keep doing it. My own health, my own love for football needs to be for this football club. But because the ambition stinks and there's a lack in consistency from the top to the bottom of this football club, eventually I'm going to get to that point where you think to yourself, I can't be bothered anymore. Because I never felt as low as I did yesterday. I felt really, really low yesterday. That defeat absolutely destroyed me. I couldn't believe how bad that was. I hope we don't see that on Thursday. I really don't. I really don't hope we see that again, because that was sickening. It makes you want to throw up how bad that was yesterday. To all three errors from the defence, to the lack of the attack, to the midfield struggles, to the problems in defence. The only ones who I think have got a future here are Lenny Yoro, Matthias de Ligt, Sandro Martinez, Agate, Ahmad. They're the only five I've actually got any faith in. All five of them for me should be starting Thursday. But again, you've brought Lenny Yoro in for 60 odd fucking million, and for the last two games he's been on the bench, and players like Maguire and Lindelof are getting ahead of him. I thought that was meant to stop. I thought that was meant to be stopping. We stopped picking the problem players, but we're still selecting them. I thought Ruben Amorim knew better than that. He should have realised, look at the crap I've got to work with. I should have never been put in this situation. I should not be asked to use these players. And I think Ruben Amorim should be putting his foot down. And I think he's got the right to do it. I'm not managing this club until you get rid of this. I'm not coming in until you get rid of half these problems. I'm not coming in until half these players are gone, because I'm not working with this. 600 million in the last two transfer windows under Erik ten Hag, and I've got to work with this dog shit. It is dog shit. We are trampling in dog shit all the time because we've got shit player after shit player after shit player. And this is why the mess we are in. This is the mess we are in. The Glazers are just using Ineos to be a cover-up for them when they are actually doing stuff. But the journalists won't cover about what the condition are in this deal between the Glazers and Ineos. Oh, yeah, there's massive cover-ups. There's massive cover-ups. Absolutely agree. And it's affecting on the pitch matters, because Ruben Amorim shouldn't have to pick Rashford ever again. Marcus Rashford should never play for this football club ever again. I don't want him involved. I don't want to see him in a Man United shirt. But my argument is, tonight, he's angry with Marcus Rashford's people around him, but he's then gone and backtracked and gone and said, I support the player. But the player has come out and stated he's ready for a new chapter. He's ready for the next step. Well, that simple question is then, Marcus Rashford needs to fuck off. It's simple as that. There's your solution in one word, 2 words, basically fuck off. If you don't want to be here and you don't want to be at this football club, do one. Because that's my big view on it. This is a must-win game. If we go 3 defeats in a row and we don't win on Thursday, The more points the Premier League clubs have got below us, and they all start picking up points, they are going to start trimming that gap to Manchester United. And the more defeats we start suffering, we will fall down that Premier League table bit by bit by bit. Because we're on 22 points. We are closer to the bottom three than we've ever been in our lifetime. I can't tell you how scary that is. But it might be the only way back. Relegation might be the only way. But back to these players, the only 5 that should be here, I've mentioned. And maybe you can chuck Garnacho in. So that's Yoro, Martinez, De Ligt, Agate, Ahmad and Garnacho. They're the only 6 I would keep at this moment in time. The rest of them are massively up for debate because when Kobe Mainoo goes to the Euros, he picks up an injury and he doesn't look like the same player again. So Southgate's ruined his career. I don't know what's happened to Bruno Fernandes. Captain my ass, leader my ass, role model my ass. The back 4, we are stuck with retirement home with Johnny Evans. We're stuck with injury-prone Lindelof. We're stuck with overrated and overhyped Maguire. For the goalkeeping situation, I have never known a goalkeeping situation like this in my life as a Manchester United fan, where we've got 2 shit goalkeepers that neither are good enough to be between the sticks. We've got 1 right wing back that's actually good in Mazraoui, but the last 2 games he's been massively found out. We're using Diego Dalot, that a lot of fans have realised at long last he's not good enough anymore. And he's never been good in my view in the first place. I've never rated Dalot. I wish we never went anywhere near him. We've got 2 injury-prone left-backs because Malacia went off yesterday. We've still got no clarification on why that sub was made. We don't know if he's got a knock. We don't know if he's got an injury, or was it a tactical sub. So we're stuck with them. We are stuck with 2 Serie A strikers where the recruitment team have to be blamed because we should have went nowhere near Rasmus. We should have went nowhere near Xerxes because neither of them are consistent enough up front. Neither of them can put the ball in the back of net on a consistent basis. Both of them are in and out the team at the moment, from the bench to the starting 11, and Amrin can't make his mind up which one to start with. And the only quality player at the moment that we've got any attacking threat from is Ahmad. He's the only player I've got any faith in. And that is me being honest. Ahmad, for me at the moment, is the only one working his butt off. He's the only one actually going for it. And it frustrates me. If we had a lot of players like Ahmad who have got the same aggression, the same belief and the confidence and the positivity, Man United would be walking games. Manchester United would be smacking everybody if you had a team full of Amad Diallos, and we don't have that. It happened 50 years ago. It could happen again. I don't think it will, but we're in danger of in Everton, no disrespect intended, and spending 40 years in the doldrums. Exactly. I wish we would have a lot more fans like this where everyone's on the same page, everyone's on the same book, but we don't have that. Fans like you make this world a better place. Mass shout out to everybody in this live chat, because a lot of people are starting to wake up. A lot of people are realising, shit, we are in a mess. We are in a mess. If we lose Thursday, I don't know where we turn. I don't know where we go. If we don't pick points up by the end of this year and we go into 2025, our year's going to be wrecked already, because our first game of the year is away to Liverpool in 2025. So if we don't beat Wolves and we don't beat Newcastle in our next 2, we're in big trouble here of not picking points up in our next 3 games in a row. We're in big trouble. The realisation is United are fucked. And again, if Ruben Amorim has got any credentials about him as manager, you've got to change the team. The only way is you change that team and you make some big calls. You drop the Maguire agenda. You've dropped this overrated goalkeeper. You drop Dalot. You drop Bruno. You drop Xerxes. You drop Højlund. And you build a younger team. You bring Garnacho back in the fold, because I don't think really he's done anything wrong. The only player who gets his name in that team sheet is Ahmad. He's the only one who deserves his space on that team sheet. He's the only one. He is the only one that is putting in any fight, and it's embarrassing. But it shows. If we had a team full of Amad Diallos, we'd be in a good place. I'm not saying this Wolves game is going to be a walkover. The new manager bounce is going to be obvious. They're going to give us a game. The positivity and the confidence they've got from that Leicester result yesterday is massively going to help them on Thursday. And don't be too surprised if we're sat here on Boxing Day with another defeat. Because the way I'm feeling at the moment and the way Manchester United made me feel yesterday, I have never felt this shit in all my life. Today, I'm actually a lot more positive, a lot more happy. I think a good night's sleep actually helped. I overslept by an hour. I think it's the realisation and the tiredness I'm getting from this football club. And maybe long term, we need to look at the bigger picture. Is it worth carrying on doing this when Manchester United are in the same mess? But I'm feeling confident at a Thursday. I still think we're going to be too good for Wolves. But in my view, the quality's got to start turning up. We've got to start putting in big player performances, big team performances. These players need to start stepping up. And I hope they produce it Thursday. But the way I'm feeling at the moment and the way Manchester United are, I'm not that confident. But all I'm going to say is let's see what happens on Thursday on Boxing Day's full-time whistle at Molyneux. So please hit the like button and share button. Hope you enjoyed this Premier League look ahead. Please share the video. Hit the tweet button, hit the retweet button. Remember to always remember the notification bell. Please put the bell on at all times so you receive dedicated and upcoming content in this last week and a half remaining in 2024. I can't believe we are 2 days away from Christmas. We are 9 days away from New Year's Day. We are so close now to 2025. And we've got brand new content planned for next year, which I want all of you to be a part of. Please go and give me a follow on my socials. I'm on TikTok. I'm also on Twitter. It's the same channel name as this. So please go and give me a follow on both of them. And like I said, please join for the full-time reaction on Thursday night once the full-time whistle goes on Boxing Day between Wolves and Manchester United at Molyneux. Let's see what happens. Will we turn it round? Or is Ruben Amorim facing exactly the same dilemma where in 2 to 3 years' time he will face the sack just like Eric Ten Hag did? So I hope you enjoy your Monday evening. Stay safe, nice, be kind to each other. I wish you all Merry Christmas. I hope you all have an amazing New Year. Enjoy Christmas Day, enjoy Christmas Eve, enjoy Boxing Day, and I'll see you guys all on the next one.